I guess I don't even really need my headphones. I'm not listening to music. What do I need these for? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Justin, and I figured I'd do something just a little different today. I've given you first listens and album reviews and all that stuff, but why not take a second to learn just a little bit more about me? And I know that sounds narcissistic. I don't mean it to come across it all that way, but I was thinking about music that I've listened to all my life, and I was thinking about albums that have meant the most to me throughout my life, who have inspired me and been the most influential in making me who I am today. So I figured I would go through at least like my top 10 albums that have influenced me in my life and my musical taste and led me to where I am today. But I also want to talk about what I think of those albums today. Just because they influenced who I am now doesn't mean I still love them, perhaps the same way I did before. Or maybe I love them more. Who knows? There's only one way to find out. So let's just start talking about them. So the first album that immediately comes to mind in influencing my life, influencing my musical taste, is Linkin Park with Meteora. I mean, I'm pretty sure that every kid of the 90s and the early 2000s probably is going to go with an answer somewhere like this. Meteora was the second album that I ever bought, and I bought it after hearing the song Faint on the radio. And I had never heard a song which brought rock and rap together in such a really cool and dynamic way. So I heard that song and it was off to the races. I had to get that album. I actually picked it up on a road trip down to like Miami or something. And I remember on the way back home, driving home, I remember just looking at the album in my hand and just like staring at it and like opening it up and reading the lyrics. I couldn't listen to it right then because my parents didn't want to listen to it, but I was just sitting there like just anticipating getting home to pop it in my CD player. I'm not a huge Linkin Park fan anymore, and Meteor is probably one of the albums that I would listen to from Linkin Park nowadays, but it's no longer a favorite, to be honest. I don't really listen to Linkin Park anymore. If they come out with something new anytime soon, I'm going to listen to it, but it's just not a band that's necessarily on my radar the same way they used to be. But once again, I do have to appreciate them for introducing me to rock and nu metal, because it's from there that, I love that heavier sound, so eventually it would lead me into like, harder sorts of metal, and even going into like DJs and turntables. I used to own turntables and try and do my own thing. So it kind of led me on a broad path of rock, rap, hip hop, and turntablism, and all of that cool stuff. The second album that I would have to mention is Dream Theater's Images and Words. What I used to use to look up new music to listen to before I discovered RYM and Reddit and all that stuff, and YouTube, I guess, I used to use AllMusic and read their reviews, try and find different genres, and I found a genre that sounded kind of cool. It was called progressive metal, and then there was like a little sub genre with it, which was like neoclassical metal, and I was like, never heard of that. That sounds kind of cool. So it was through there that I listened to like Yngwie Malmsteen and Symphony X and stuff, and I found Dream Theater, Images and Words, and I listened to that album, and I was immediately captured. I mean, I had never heard anything even like that. It was just amazing. And to this day, I still think that it is absolutely top tier Dream Theater. Dream Theater isn't a band I listen to really anymore at all. But Images and Words, you can always put that on. Awake, you can always put that on. Octavarium, love it. But Images and Words to me remains their best, most consistent, and their classic album. There isn't a song on there I don't like. Pull Me Under, Another Day, Learning to Live, of course Metropolis, but like, that's... And La Brise sounds fantastic. Everyone's on point. Myung, his bass playing, actually, it was on that album and listening to John Myung that actually inspired me to pick up bass. I never got anywhere near him, but that was the inspiration. Moving on to a different path, moving into a different avenue, I have to talk about jazz a little bit. Jazz has played a huge role in my life and my influences, and what better jazz album to talk about than Miles Davis with Kind of Blue. I'm sure that this is also a lot of people's like first and probably most seminal jazz album. I mean, it's critically acclaimed for a reason. Miles Davis, the creative genius and just mastermind that he is, and of course with all the musicianship behind it, taking you from different flavors of jazz. I mean, you got Blue and Green, which is one of my favorite, absolute favorite songs. That is just slow, subtle, romance, just sublime. And then you got songs like Freddie Freeloader, which has become pretty much the standard, or one of the standards in jazz. I actually think I first heard that song. I think I was playing SimCity. I'm pretty sure that that song is in that game. And I think that that's where the first time I heard that song was. And from Kind of Blue and from listening to Miles Davis, I eventually went into like Coltrane, who is, I would guess, presently my favorite jazz artist, Duke Ellington, Sonny Rollins, and other, artists like that. Charles Mingus, of course, can't forget Mingus. My dad is a huge, huge jazz person, so that was something that we could both talk about. When I started listening to jazz albums, he was really surprised because I had never shown any interest in jazz before. So he was really surprised when I was able to start naming like all the members of the bands and the quartets and all that stuff. Oh yeah. Now from the soft and calm avenues of Kind of Blue, let's move into something just a little different with Opeth-Blackwater Park. This was my first foray into death metal. And while I know that Opeth isn't like pure death metal, it was the first introduction and entry point into the sound that I would later, follow listening to just straight death metal and other stuff like that. But the way that Opeth mixed together those death metal influences with soft, oh my gosh, gorgeous, fully fleshed out progressive pieces, they are still something special to this day. Blackwater Park is still something special to me today. That album is just so cool, the way they bring all these things together, and they have a very specific sound. Michael Ackerfeld, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, excuse me if I mispronounced it, but he was my favorite vocalist for a long time. His cleans were soft, sullen, full of emotion, but his growl is probably still one of the most ferocious growls that I've heard to this day, and probably one of the most notorious and notable. And I forgot to mention with Kind of Blue, it's not one of my favorites anymore, but it's definitely like a still undeniably good album. Like I don't really listen to it much anymore because I over-listen to it, but it's still a great album. Getting back to Blackwater Park, I mean, I was so surprised when I listened to Bleak. I remember the first time I listened to Bleak and I was like, okay, it's heavy, that's really cool. But when it broke into that second half, where it got really progressive and changed its ways, I was genuinely shocked when that happened. And from that moment on, I was in. Ooh, that's a good album. Blackwater Park, still high tier. That's I don't listen to it often, but it's still a high tier album. I probably listen to like Ghost Reveries more than Blackwater Park. But, I mean, it's good. Let's change genres again. Why not switch into a different territory? I kind of told you where Linkin Park had influenced me, specifically going towards the turntables and sampling and production side of things. So with that, I was introduced to the album by DJ Shadow called Introducing, one of the most popular and noteworthy albums in the hip-hop, especially instrumental hip-hop world of production, world of sampling. That album introduced me into a lot of things. I started researching DJs and how exactly a proper DJ worked. I'm not talking about someone who presses, play, skip, and fades the songs in and out. I mean, there's, that's fine, that's cool, that's a thing. But I'm talking about like a DJ taking something that's been made, almost building a sonic collage of music from samples and drum beats, and it is so much work and art. And I fell in love with that. DJ Shadow Introducing, that album is critically acclaimed for a reason. Listen to the song Midnight in a Perfect World. It's still one of my favorite songs to this day. Absolutely beautiful. And the whole album is built from samples, like everything in it. That is amazing. That's like one of those pictures where it's like it forms a big picture, but as you get closer and closer to it, you begin to see like the little pictures that form the big picture, and you're like, oh, and you're like, what? I don't listen to it a lot nowadays, but when I do put it on, it's one I have to let go at least until the end. At least until the end, as if there's any other way to put it. And it's been way too long in this video. It's been, what is it at? I can't even see the time. It's been, at least a few minutes. But I have gone this far in the video without talking about David Sylvian, who is still my favorite artist. Gotta talk about his album, Secrets of the Beehive. that is the one. I first heard that album. I was looking for I remember, I think I made a forum post on RYM, rateyourmusic.com, and I think I made a post looking for deep and rich voices because at the time I was really into that. And I think that someone had posted David Sylvian's Secret of the Beehive. So I looked it up, bought it, listened to September, beautiful track, nice piano introduction. And then as soon as The Boy with the Gun came on, I was in it. I listened to that album. I still listen to it, but I listened to that album every single day, probably at least 3 times, for at least 2 to 3 years, every day. Yeah, that is just such a good album. David's voice is immediately capturing, heart-wrenching, emotional, soulful, just beautiful, and the artistry and the music around it. That is something that I could listen to for days on end, and like I said, I still listen to it today. But just the way that his voice melts within these acoustic, folky, sometimes even jazzy, classically ambient inspired, artworks. I mean, it's just amazing. And this is, yeah, that album led me to discovering who would later become, and who now is, my favorite artist. So those 7 that I just went over, those 7 albums, those are the ones that are like the most influential in my taste now, in my life now. But I'm going to rattle off just a few more, just to kind of give you, a little more of the sauce, Those were the meats that created the stew that I am now. This is just a little bit of the seasoning. This is a little bit of the sauce. And I really tried to ignore, like, a bunch of other albums. I'm talking about, like, this is what really influenced me to this day. All Shall Perish, The Price of Existence. Now we're getting into some heavy deathcore, guys. Now we're getting to the heavy stuff. Deathcore is a genre that's been lamented and laughed at for many, many years, and I understand it. But this is an album that I feel is a very serious release. Of course, the musicianship is crushing. Drumming and the vocals, it is just dominating in the music. And the breakdowns, God, I love the breakdowns. And listening to breakdowns, that's how I found deathcore, because I just love the sound of the band breaking it down. I mean, those are the heaviest moments and the moments you could groove and dance to, and I suppose mosh to, really. But The Price of Existence by All Shall Perish, and really a lot of their albums, if not pretty much all their albums, are just really brilliant shows of musicianship, thoughtful lyrics, and just crushing, agonizing terror of musicianship. I love it. Oh, we gotta talk about MF Doom and Madvillain. The album Madvillainy. Ooh, I get goosebumps when I think about that album. That album and MF Doom, of course, rest in peace to him. He is and will remain my favorite rapper probably for a long time, even now, after his untimely passing. But Madvillain, the collaboration between Madlib and MF Doom, just brilliant. I mean, there's a reason why it's one of the top-ranked albums, specifically of hip-hop, but I mean, I would put it in all time for a reason. I mean, just the smooth and always interesting flow from MF Doom, the jazzy sampling from Madlib. Their collaboration really showed like a unique bond between them, and it is just incredible. I mean, buttery smooth vocals, always meaningful lyrics, instrumentation is brilliant. That's an album that speaks for itself. George Benson, Give Me the Night. That is just a fun album. That's an album that I can always just put on and just groove to. From the title track, Give Me the Night, that's a song most people know. That is just danceability, fun, funk, and soul. That's like dad soul. Besides my dad liking jazz, that's the type of music he would like. Just that soul that gets you moving. I don't think that the album is perfect. It gets a little long-winded to me near the ending of it. But I would say the first half is just perfect. I could listen to the first half of that all the time. If you want something just Saturday soul. That's a good phrase, actually, Saturday soul. Then you gotta give Me the Night by George Benson a try. Finally, this one might be just a little unexpected because it's more of a recent one, but I do feel that in my life and in the way that it's influenced me, I have to give it a spot on this list. I have to give it to Yes, specifically with the album Going for the One. Now, I'm sure a lot of other people are thinking Close to the Edge, and listen, yes, that album is perfect, and it's brilliant, and I love listening to it. But Going for the One is the first one that really got me into Yes, from listening to Turn of the Century into that organ-filled, brilliant climax in Awaken. That album just like It showed me what progressive rock, especially classic progressive rock, could be. And it was something that really grabbed me. I love John's vocals. I love the bass playing by Squire. Howe is just, he's just a mastermind. And Alan just brings power to the drum kit. I mean, the album may not be like the most highly ranked among fans, but for me as an entry point and really getting to hear what the band could do, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better starting place. You guys saw my reaction to Awaken. That was it. And I still come back to the first moment that yes clicked for me when I was listening to Turn of the Century off of that album. That was the song that told me like, hey, pay attention to these guys. There's a reason why everyone else likes them. And then in going back from going for the 1-2, the final track, Awaken, I understood why. So I would have to absolutely give a spot on this list to yes with going for the 1. Guys, I would love to know what albums have influenced you in your life. Now, don't throw out like 20 or 50 suggestions. I know we all have them. I know we all have albums that we love and that have influenced us, but trim it down. Give me like 10. But I would love to know your list. Definitely leave it in the comments down below. Of course, if you've watched this video, I can't thank you enough for watching it. If you don't mind, if you could just leave me a like down at the bottom before you click out. As always, you can join me in the comments. You can join me on Twitter. You can support the channel financially on Patreon, but you don't have to. I hope that you just enjoyed the video, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great night. Bye.